Where did it all go wrong? A feud that won't stop escalating. Two sisters, two completely different versions of history, Meghan and Samantha Markle, have been feuding for close to a decade now. A decade back and forth. And this feud initially became public shortly after news broke to the world that Meghan was dating Prince Harry all the way back in 2016. That was the exact same time that we were all introduced to not only Meghan, but also her sister Samantha. In fact, it was a few weeks, if not a few days later, that Samantha began warning the world about her relatively unknown sister. And guess what? The warnings keep on coming with no signs of stopping. The majority of the public lean towards one of the two sides. Either they side with Meghan, they believe that she is the victim of a jealous and bitter older sister, or they side with Samantha, who believes that Meghan is a diva, a princess pushy, who completely fabricated her underdog rags to riches story. So, which sister is telling the truth? Which sister is spewing lies? It's the ultimate story of she said, she said. I want to know about it, you want to know about it, and that is what we are going to try to unravel today. So let's dig into the past, rewind the clocks, and see when, how, and why their relationship turned sour. We're going to review the evidence, which can shed light onto the crucial factors that led to such differing stories of what did and did not happen. This is Markle vs. Markle.
Oh, but there is one thing you're all forgetting. That endless morning will turn to night. And when you're dreaming, you will be seeing a little demon dancing around. Baby, there is only one way, and that's the slow decay. Get a little earthy with me, I'll pull you down like rain. So tired, I can tell from your shape. Feeling sleepy, yeah, you can beat the slow decay.
Ken, do you hear that? That is the sound of hearts breaking all around the world. Well, we have yet to see them together. It is reported that Prince Harry is dating actress Meghan Markle.
The world found out about the strife in the Markle family almost as soon as we first learned about Meghan. The date was October 31st, 2016, and it was an important date because it was the day that news broke across the globe that Meghan Markle was dating the notorious bachelor, Prince Harry. And it was literally the next day that reports came out which identified Meghan's half-sister, Samantha Grant at the time, as voicing her truths and issuing a warning to the royal family. In the paper, it identified Samantha as calling her sister narcissistic and selfish. Here is the first article posted by the Daily Mail on November 1st, 2016. And according to the article, she was quoted as saying, "The royal family would be appalled by what she's done to her own family. The truth would kill her relationship with Prince Harry. He wouldn't want to date her anymore because it puts her in a bad public light. Hollywood has changed her. I think her ambition is to become a princess. It was something she dreamed of as a girl when we watched the royals on TV. And also, she's always preferred Harry. She has a soft spot for gingers." A majority of people during this time discounted Samantha as a bitter, jealous, and unhinged sister. And the heat from the press was also heavily on Meghan, this new American who snagged the attention of the prince. Just 1 month later, in December 2016, an article was published detailing the rift between the sisters, and they went into the specifics about how Samantha allegedly lied and her jealousy. Several in Samantha's family spoke out about their perspective in the article, starting with her mom, Rosalind, who was quoted as saying, "She thought she was going to be able to discredit Meghan, and Prince Harry was going to say, 'Oh well, ta-ta with you.' But when she found out that they were still dating and the relationship might be going somewhere, she wanted into the limelight. She wants back in Meghan's good graces because of the limelight and the attention. She thought she could ruin things for her, Meghan, with Harry, and now she's realized they will keep dating, whatever she says. Now she's sucking up to her. She just wants money. She has always demanded money from Meghan.
Even members of my own family, my mom at that time, rather than talking to me, was walking in the antline. Everybody was afraid to point out that the emperor wasn't wearing any clothing. It was much easier to demonize Samantha than it was to question the fairy tale.
Also quoted was Samantha's ex-husband, Scott Rasmussen, who also disagreed with several things that Samantha had allegedly said. He said, her father, Tom, he said that when Meghan was born, Samantha distanced herself from the family. She did go to visit, and she got a couple of nice pictures of her holding Meghan as a baby, but don't believe the rest. They, Samantha and Meghan, are not close at all. He also added, even when she was married to me, Samantha was always complaining about her sister. She would always say, oh, Dad is helping her in her career. Why isn't he helping me? And I'd be thinking, well, because you have a bad attitude. Bobby Lucero, Samantha's half-brother on her mother's side, is quoted as saying, Samantha is not a good person. She's mean and vindictive. She's just all about herself. She's jealous and obviously thought that should probably be her dating Prince Harry. Ever since I can remember, she's had nothing good to say about Meghan. It's always been like, this little bee is taking advantage of my dad.
And I think everyone wanted to glom onto a fairy tale so much that this princess in this fairy tale could do no wrong. So instead of giving me the benefit of the doubt then and realizing and thinking, gee, maybe she's telling the truth. Maybe she's not, quote, bashing her sister. Maybe she's not glomming on for money. Maybe she's got something to say here and maybe it's important.
The next 6 months, Samantha was on a crusade to tell the world the real true side of her sister, one that most people don't get to see. And that a lot of Meghan's behavior was an act, was a facade. In March 2017, 5 months after Meghan publicly started dating Harry, she penned an essay for Time magazine on how periods affect potential in the developing world. It was about when you get your period, it may be a monthly annoyance, but it's not exactly cause for dropping out of school. But in developing countries, there's a lack of sanitary products, and there's major stigma surrounding periods. So her friends applauded her by writing this article, and in particular, her friend Serena Williams tweeted, so proud of my girl at Meghan Markle, writing this inspiring piece. You continue to inspire me every day. Check it out. So she forwarded a link to the article. And Samantha Markle responded and replied and said, but what did she donate to them to make real change come about? Money for toilets? Maxi pads? Or just a photo op? Samantha was basically calling BS on Meghan's behavior. And that wasn't all. There was a time when the media would write stories with headlines like, look away, Harry. And there was a tweet from a pro-Meghan account called @MeghanMDaily, which stated, petition for the media to stop saying look away, Harry, when Meghan Markle does her job on screen. And Samantha replied, you mean the job on 90210? Now, I had no idea what she was talking about until I did some further digging and found this. This feud between sisters was just getting started. And unfortunately, it would escalate and escalate and escalate to the point where it would eventually lead to an all-out media war, lawsuit war, and the war of public opinion, all of which were looming just around the corner. So let's discuss the facts thus far. Articles written claiming Samantha was talking badly about Meghan were printed around October 2016. Samantha never came out. She never spoke out against the articles, never said, nope, this didn't come from me, let me set the record straight. Nothing of the sort until 1 year later. And during this time, Samantha was adamant that what was printed about her negative comments about Meghan in the press were just not true.
Now, one of the reasons I understand that you've agreed to this interview and you want to come on British television and speak to the British people is that you feel you've been quite seriously misquoted about your sister. I'll cut straight to the chase. It's been written over here that you claimed that Meghan was self-obsessed and you were planning to write a diary, a tell-all book. So you don't think that she was self-obsessed and you don't think that she's going into this relationship kind of cold-bloodedly at all?
Of course not. Of course not. And, you know, I just have to say, don't believe what you read in tabloids. You know, if you didn't see me say it and you didn't hear it from a reliable source, you've got to remember that tabloids say incredibly far-fetched, horrible things about just about everybody.
That interview that we just saw from Samantha was filmed in October 2017, 1 year after all of that original reporting came out. So my question is, why did she stay quiet for all that time? No rebuttals, no corrections. Why would she speak out against those claims and wait for an entire year? So naturally, one has to ask, was there anything going on around that time? Well, right around that time, there was a big commotion going on as rumors were buzzing that a royal engagement was on its way. And the catalyst for that was that Meghan and Harry made their first joint official public appearance together as a couple, holding hands at the Invictus Games.
Actress Meghan Markle, yes, they were spotted stepping out again, and this time they were actually together. Yes. Remember yesterday, we reported that they were both at the Invictus Games opening ceremonies, but 18 seats apart. Well, you're looking at pictures right now of the duo strolling hand in hand to the wheelchair tennis event, getting a lot of attention for looking so relaxed together. Some royal watchers say, George, it's uncommon to see British royalty holding someone else's hand, and that it can only mean this is the real deal and that an engagement cannot be far away.
So naturally, I'm going to throw in my speculation flag because I believe it's my theory, my speculation, my conspiracy that Samantha wanted to smooth things over before a royal engagement was announced. Because who wouldn't want to be invited to a royal wedding, especially when you would be the sister of a royal bride? I'm sure you've heard the term, tears can flow at the same time that laughter can be present. Basically, that two things can be true at the same time, just as two things can be wrong at the same time. And in this case, my theory is that this is what was going on with Samantha Markle. I think that Samantha really did find what Meghan did to her family appalling, that she really did think that Hollywood changed her, that she really did believe that Meghan's ultimate ambition was to become a princess. Samantha told an Australian radio show that she was hurt by the fact that Meghan hadn't reached out to her in 9 years. And during that time, Samantha had been diagnosed with MS, and she now uses a wheelchair because of it. She also shared that the last time she saw Meghan was at her graduation in 2008. And what really upset Samantha was the perceived hypocrisy of her sister, especially in regards to charitable acts. Humanitarianism begins at home. That doesn't mean monetary, it means reaching out. I am in a wheelchair, and she did meet Harry at the Invictus Games. I felt like it was an opportunity to be a voice and bring a lot of awareness to it. Samantha can still try to warn the world of how and why she believed her sister wouldn't be a good fit for the royal family, in addition, at the same time, simultaneously being jealous and maybe feeling as though Meghan did take advantage of their dad on one side, and all the while maybe throwing in the towel because she's like, look, I told the world, I told Harry and his family, I gave you my warning, and you guys are ignoring all of them. We're gonna go ahead as we've planned. So once she decided and realized that Harry was in it for the long haul and that this relationship was just getting more and more serious, maybe Samantha decided it's time to just, you know what, smooth things over, distance herself from her alleged previous negative statements that she now adamantly denies.
Samantha, there's been a lot of stuff written about your family, not all of it positive, a lot of stuff about splits and feuds and so on. But what's the reality of the Markles right now?
The reality is most of that was a media construct, like any family. At the end of the day, we're very normal, and moving forward, we're going into the holidays. This is a joyous occasion. So I think any sort of misconception that was out there, we have to let bygones be bygones and really just be happy moving forward. This is so special and important that all of that is just silly. And, we really want her to be happy, and we are. So, it's quite normal. Oh my God, look at her glow and look at her go. And she's just amazing. And this relationship is giving her a lot of that. I am so amazed and thrilled at the woman you've become. And I love you. And I'm so proud of you.
Gren says she's not jealous of Meghan's fame and believes her words were twisted.
The only remark that I made was about a disagreement 5 or 6 years ago within the family. One word spun into about 30 other dramatic words, pushy princess, diva, narcissistic, all of this other stuff came out that I never said.
She's concerned that false stories about their family will hurt Meghan and her royal relationship.
It's really just time for privacy. This stuff has to stop.
1 month after Samantha's interview publicly downplaying the prior negative statements reported by the media, and even requesting privacy from the media, as anticipated by many across the world, on November 27th, 2017, it was announced that Harry was engaged to Meghan.
Congratulations from all of us. How are you both feeling?
As happy as the newly engaged couple looked, and as ecstatic both her sister and her side of the family were about the news, this event, unfortunately, would become the catalyst for an outright, full-on, drag-out, knockdown Markle family civil war that not only involved Samantha, but also their dad and eventually her half-brother. Meghan's side of the family was elated about the news of the royal wedding. The family played nice, as they probably assumed that they would be invited to the wedding. And not only that, but I'm assuming they were optimistic that they would be brought into the fold, similar to Kate Middleton's family, like her sister Pippa and brother James. Around this time, the negative press about Meghan's family ceased to exist. Instead, there were headlines that were filled with glowing reviews, optimism, and hints about waiting to get that coveted royal wedding invite. Thomas Markle Jr., Meghan's older half-brother, discussed with the media how Meghan would be a great aunt to the royal children. And Thomas's son, Tyler, discussed how Meghan was great with kids and how she would have a wonderful time with a then young Prince George and Princess Charlotte. Tyler recalled a story where Meghan used to take him to the park to feed ducks. We would feed the ducks and run to the park when she babysat me and my brother Thomas. The family really did believe that Harry would be coming into the fold and meeting their side of the family, integrating himself with the Markles as well. Samantha spoke about how she essentially was expecting Meghan's side of the family to be invited to the wedding. But as the months went by, there were no announcements, and still, Samantha was sure that they would eventually be invited. 1 month before the wedding, Samantha wrote, "The Markle family is looking forward to our wedding invites. No one has one yet. Still waiting. I hope London is wheelchair friendly. Excited." And a user by the name of Guchu replied, "They didn't send an invite, yet you shouldn't be the first one to get the invites? I don't get it." And Samantha replied, "Well, everyone is making arrangements and it's difficult to organize everything, as you can imagine." Piers Morgan, who is now actually staunchly against Meghan and her behavior, but during this time carried a different tune during the time of the wedding. Because at this time, he was most certainly on the side Team Meghan, and he made it known how disgraceful it was that the siblings who had been trash-talking Meghan were expecting an invite.
I'm afraid Meghan's family is littered with people who have been appalling in this whole engagement and wedding process.
And then she still thinks she could get an invite to the wedding, at least before now.
Well, she and this other half-brother, Thomas Jr., who has been writing open letters to Harry telling him to dump Meghan. This is his own sister. The pair of them should just shut up and go away.
How would you describe Samantha, the half-sister?
Ghastly. Appalling, the kind of worst half-sister imaginable. Somebody who clearly wants to be Meghan Markle, is seething with jealousy she's not Meghan Markle, and is now eking out this kind of miserable career as the bitter half-sister, telling us how narcissistic and awful and grasping Meghan is, when actually all of us think that's her.
During this time, the big topic of the day in the news was the royal wedding, and curious minds wanted to know who was going to be invited. But during the lead up to the wedding, Samantha had still not been invited. But at this time, her dad was. And in fact, the same month of the wedding, Thomas was photographed by paparazzi getting measured for a tuxedo that he was going to wear at Meghan's royal wedding.
Will your father walk Meghan down the aisle?
My father is absolutely walking her down the aisle. Unless a plane crashes through his roof, he will be there. And for the rest of us, we will be there if she wants us there.
So if wedding invitations had already gone out, it was clear at this point who was and was not invited. And Samantha was apparently on that do not invite list. And she was livid.
Samantha expressed excitement for her sister.
For us, it's more like a family thing. If you're invited to the wedding, you go and you're happy for the bride and groom.
But that's apparently turned to anger now that she's learned there's no invite in the mail.
Family is family. And more than 1,000 strangers are invited. And that strangers list included the likes of Oprah Winfrey, Idris Elba, Elton John, George Clooney, James Corden, David and Victoria Beckham, Tom Hardy. Less than a week before the wedding, it was reported that Thomas would no longer be attending. There were conflicting stories during the time because there was this ongoing story about how Thomas had been busted staging paparazzi photos, and he was embarrassed and wanted to drop out due to the fallout. But also, another reason for him supposedly backing out was that he had had a heart attack and he needed to recover and rest. In retrospect, Thomas would reflect on this event with regret and called his actions stupid and hammy. But what was not known at the time was the catalyst behind those photos. The idea was actually encouraged by Samantha. Samantha even believed in hindsight that this was a setup by none other than Meghan herself.
I got several text messages from Jeff Rayner saying, he'll make it discreet. He won't be seen. He'll be 100 yards down the street in the bushes. And I kind of thought that would be a good idea because nobody was giving my dad the chance to be seen as he is. Well, I didn't know that they had an agenda. So Meghan apparently had photographed with Jeff Rayner prior to all the royal wedding stuff. I believe she knew what was going to happen. They had a relationship. So he sent me a bunch of text messages guaranteeing that it would be discreet. And then I see the next day, the photographer is walking with my dad in the internet cafe with a long lens camera after he assured me that it would be discreet for my dad's safety and, all intents and purposes, so that it wouldn't be obvious in public because my dad would draw a lot of attention and it would be kind of weird. And I wanted it to be private and a good thing for my dad. So to see Jeff or to see the photographer in the internet cafe walking next to my dad with a long lens camera, I was like, wait, you said this would be discreet. I don't see you 100 yards down the way in a bush, like you said. You're right next to him. And I found out from my dad later, the photographer chose the internet cafe because my dad had suggested other places. And the photographer said, no, this is where we're going to go. He knew that surveillance cam was on the ceiling. And isn't it weird that the very next morning, there was an article in the Daily Mail, Thomas Markle stages photos, and it was a big scam. And isn't it also weird that the next day on Facebook, Jeff Rayner was bragging on his Facebook page, calling it a cheeky little hit? Why the hell did she shoot with Jeff Rayner when she moved to Montecito with Coleman Rayner credits on the bottom of the photo? Seems like she had a relationship with him before and after. And I believe the whole thing was set up to discredit my father and to keep him away from the wedding and to create a reason why he couldn't be at the wedding.
So here's the question. Playing devil's advocate, it would be understandable that you don't invite your half-sister to a wedding who you believe is trash-talking you, that you're not really close to, that you don't feel has your back, and that doesn't have your best intentions. Fine. And even if your dad backed out to your wedding due to health reasons, embarrassment, or both, fine. But what this doesn't account for is what about the others? What about everyone else in the Markle family? The brothers, the cousins, the aunts, the uncles, the nephews, the nieces. What about them? Meghan claimed that she had wanted to invite Samantha's daughter to the wedding, but it would have been a nightmare for her to explain. How do we explain that this half-sister isn't invited to the wedding, but the half-sister's daughter is? But this still is not making sense, because even if Meghan wanted nothing to do with the Markle side of the family, why weren't the Ragland side of the family, aside from her mom, why weren't they invited? And Samantha gives a very compelling reason as to why she believes this happened. Samantha believed that Meghan wanted to have total control over the narrative regarding her upbringing and family circumstances. And having her family around was a conflict of interest to her own agenda. She didn't like the rebuttals or the challenging of her rags to riches story. And if Samantha's theory is correct, disinviting her family to her wedding was probably the worst choice she could have made, because this gave Samantha and her family the ammunition it needed to put on the fighting gloves once again, stop biting their tongues, and go full-blown media expose. Samantha was back on the media trail, this time determined to let the world know exactly what she thought of her sister. Some was in defense of their father, some were warnings to the public, and as well as the royal family. For starters, Samantha was not impressed with how Meghan treated their father after that whole wedding fiasco, and she claimed that Meghan distanced herself from her father after that incident and was adamant that Meghan could have been a more supportive daughter during this time. She also described Meghan as having a narcissistic personality who never appreciated what her family, in particular her dad, had done for her growing up. How Meghan, who claimed to be this humanitarian, could leave her family behind, could completely abandon her family for another. It was another reason Samantha felt the need to correct the record when Meghan kept asserting that she alone achieved her accomplishments in life. And in Samantha's eyes, her father deserved way more gratitude, way more credit for the woman Meghan became, for the opportunities that she was presented.
Why would, and someone who gave you everything, who gave you these, without whom you would not have met the people who did Suits. Reportedly, they were Northwestern alumni. Dad paid for the Northwestern. You wouldn't have hung out at ABC TV and learned everything that you did. You wouldn't have eaten at Musso and Frank instead of rubbing two nickels together at a Sizzler at a buffet.
Samantha went full attack mode, wanting to let the world know how much their father had really helped Meghan's career, her schooling, her college, all of it. About 5 months after their wedding, Meghan was on the trail, making royal appearances, and at this time made an appearance at a college in Fiji, where she discussed the struggles young adults had affording college tuition and gave insight into her own struggles.
As a university graduate, I know the personal feeling of pride and excitement that comes with attending university. From the moment you receive your acceptance letter to the exams you spend countless late nights studying one. I am also fully aware of the challenges of being able to afford this level of schooling for many people around the world, myself included. It was through scholarships, financial aid programs, and work study, where my earnings from a job on campus went directly towards my tuition, that I was able to attend university. And without question, it was worth every effort.
But Samantha called foul as soon as this happened, and she tweeted, Harper's Bazaar? Dad paid her college tuition. She forgot the most important part of her speech, and there are receipts to prove it. I love my sister, but this is ridiculous. You can't lie like this, Meg. Delusionally absurd.
The lies came out as we saw PR pushing the lies. You didn't get grants and scholarships in school at all. Dad paid for everything from the time you took your first breath until, Northwestern and Trevor, and it was all Dad.
That same year, there would be more drama where Samantha sided against her sister, and this time it was once again with her father. After the wedding, the relationship between Thomas and Meghan was still strained, and during this time, Meghan sent him a letter to discuss her feelings. Not long after, an article was published by People magazine claiming to quote one of Meghan's close friends, who summarized the contents of the letter to Thomas as Meghan pleaded with her father to stop victimizing her through the media so that their relationship could be repaired. But Thomas was so offended by this reporting because his interpretation of the letter was the exact opposite of what had been reported. Thomas recalled, "When I opened the letter, I was hoping it was this olive branch I'd longed for. I was expecting something that would be a pathway to reconciliation. Instead, it was deeply hurtful. I was so devastated I couldn't show it to anyone, and never would have, had it not been for the People magazine piece, which meant I had to release portions to defend myself." This letter, according to him, was not kind, and it was not a peace offering. To him, it was a final farewell. Thomas released parts of the letter in order to rebut what had been reported, and Samantha defended her father's right to do so. Also around this time came news that Meghan was pregnant with the couple's first child.
Kensington Palace first announced the news on Twitter early this morning, saying, quote, "Their Royal Highnesses, the Duke and Duchess of Sussex, are very pleased to announce that the Duchess of Sussex is expecting a baby in the spring of 2019.
News media jumped to hear Samantha's response, and she stated, "It just makes everything that happened over the last year disappear. I want Meghan to be happy and calm and have peace. Everybody needs to be positive. I hope my dad is included at a proper time. If he is excluded, I won't be happy. It is in the best interest of the baby for my dad to be included." As we know, even to this day, Meghan and Harry's children are not in their grandpa's life, so it's a safe assumption to say Samantha is still not happy about it. By that following year, Samantha announced she was writing a memoir titled The Diary of Princess Pushy's Sister, which was meant to shed light on the dynamics within the Markle family. And in the book, she portrayed Meghan as someone who had abandoned her family for the sake of fame, and that she had been less than honest about her upbringing. For starters, even before she had met Harry, Samantha called BS on Meghan's story that she worked for the embassy out of college.
Did you ever get a job working in politics? I used to work for the U.S. Embassy in Buenos Aires, and I don't know, it was another life. Cool. Yeah, it's been really great, and now to sort of parlay that, I work pretty closely with UN Women now. I double majored theater and international relations, and then I went and worked for the U.S. Embassy for a bit, and
where?
In Argentina, in Buenos Aires.
That's sensational.
She went on Rachel Ray and Craig Ferguson and said that she worked for the embassy right out of college. No, you didn't. You never worked for the embassy. Let's get this straight right here. I think that was a god-awful, grandiose lie. Uncle Mike, who worked for the embassy, put in a letter of recommendation as a favor to Dad, and Dad paid for a 5-week study program where she got to kind of watch and see what, goes on at the embassy. But a 5-week, let's face it, a 5-week study program is like not even a junior college summer certificate.
In January 2020, Meghan and Harry shocked the world with an announcement stepping back from royal duties.
Tonight, the surprise announcement from Prince Harry and Meghan Markle reportedly blindsiding the Queen. After returning from a long trip to Canada, they say they intend to step back as senior members of the royal family.
With our team, we decided we would put out a statement that we were going to sadly be stepping back, not stepping down, but to just have a reduced role. So the hope was that it's right there in black and white. You can see, here's our intentions. Here's how we wish to continue to support the Commonwealth. There was also a documentary for ITV during this time with Meghan and Harry filming in Africa. And during the interview, Meghan ended up in tears.
Trying to be a new mom or trying to be a newlywed,
Yeah, well, I guess, and also thank you for asking, because not many people have asked if I'm okay, but it's a very real thing to be going through behind the scenes.
And the answer is, would it be fair to say not really okay? As in, it's really been a struggle.
Yes.
Samantha was in disbelief by this statement and couldn't believe that Meghan actually had the audacity to give such a remark when she had iced out their father. Wow. Did you ever ask Dad if he was okay during 2 heart attacks? Samantha claimed Meghan knew exactly what she was doing. You got what you wanted. I think it's really ludicrous that someone who is escorted around the world on a private jet as a millionaire could ever complain about anything. 1 year after officially stepping away from royal duties, Meghan and Harry agreed to a tell-all interview with Oprah Winfrey. And during that time, the topic of Samantha was brought up.
And Samantha Markle, your half-sister on your father's side, has written a supposedly tell-all book about you. What is your relationship with her?
I think it'd be very hard to tell all when you don't know me, right? I don't feel comfortable talking about people that I really don't know. But I grew up as an only child, which everyone who grew up around me knows. And I wished I had siblings.
Meghan was adamant that she didn't know Samantha and that she grew up as an only child. And this statement really pissed the Markle side of the family off. And it was more than just Samantha.
During the Oprah interview, when Meghan said she had no siblings, when she told the world she was an only child, I mean, were you disappointed?
No, I just made a little mark on my board and said, oh, there's another lie, click.
They believed that her indifference towards them was not only insulting, but they believed it was a lie, a narrative that was used for a very specific purpose.
I believe she had a clear motive for writing family off because it would seemingly justify and perhaps delay the revelation of all of the lies that she had told the royal family. Seemingly in her mind, she had to inflate who she was to garner false admiration and to be accepted by the royals instead of saying, look, I've worked very hard. My family was upper middle class. He put me through the best schools. He did the best he could. He loved me. He sacrificed. And for that, I'm grateful.
Samantha wrote, Meg's family, our family, is complete with sister, brother, aunts, uncles, cousins, and the glue of our family, our amazing, completely self-sacrificing father. She always had this family. Samantha also shot back and explained how she had been in Meghan's life.
Called her my sister. My little sister, though, I said, if there was any descriptive qualifier. She was my little sis.
Well, I'm sure she was annoyed and probably pissed off about what Meghan had said during the interview. There was also a pro-Meghan book called Finding Freedom that came out, and while I'm sure that Samantha was annoyed and probably pissed off about what Meghan had said during the interview, and she was probably pissed off about things that were in it. And then came the bombshell that dropped with Meghan and Harry's Netflix documentary, which contained a 5-minute segment stating Samantha was part of the group that was putting out disinformation, and ending with Meghan saying, "You are making people want to kill me." Samantha decided to sue Meghan for what she believed was defamatory statements Meghan stated in the Oprah interview, in addition to what was alleged in Finding Freedom. And while that book was not directly written by Meghan, she was sued because it was believed that she collaborated with the authors of the book.
Meghan Markle's half-sister, Samantha Markle, has filed a defamation lawsuit against her. Samantha is suing Meghan for defamation based on demonstrably false and malicious statements.
In particular, Samantha took issue to several topics, one being that Meghan said that she grew up as an only child and that she never had a sister. Another topic of issue was that in Chapter 12 of Finding Freedom, the first sentence began with, "Trouble began with Samantha Markle." Also, Samantha said that it was false that she was not invited to Meghan's first wedding. Instead, she said that she was invited, but the wedding was in Jamaica, and she couldn't attend. Samantha was confined to a wheelchair due to multiple sclerosis. She had a young daughter, and she was in school at the time. For these reasons, Samantha was unable to attend the wedding in Jamaica. Meghan's lawyers retorted by saying her comments about growing up without siblings were clearly subjective, not factual, and therefore not defamatory, noting her words couldn't be more of a textbook example of a subjective statement about how a person feels about their childhood. Her lawsuit was filed in March 2022, and it would take 2 years for a Florida judge to dismiss Samantha's case with prejudice in March 2024. And according to court documents, Samantha failed to identify any statements that could support a claim for defamation or defamation by implication by this point, her third try at amending her complaint. Probably my favorite analogy for the feud within this family is how an interviewer put a mirror directly up to the Markle family's face and proclaimed this.
Because you're family, you guys are just so much alike. And Meghan really is just a carbon copy. What do you say to that proposition? I mean, in the sense that you're really just as bad as each other.
As much as Meghan wants to boo-hoo about what was done to her by Samantha and her dad, didn't her and Harry basically do the exact same thing to the royal family with their tell-all books, massive Netflix documentaries, interviews with Oprah? The list goes on and on. And if you're wondering if there will be any chance of reconciliation for the two Markle sisters, my bet is that the answer is a big fat no. Samantha even recently guessed that Harry and Meghan's marriage will eventually end in divorce, and she believes that they are not healthy for one another. And if you thought that this family feud saga was a nightmare, wait until you see just how much of a nightmare Meghan and Harry's first 5 years of marriage were. It was tumultuous. You haven't seen anything yet. It's about heartbreak, jealousy, power, lies, and greed. A royal family, the media, a famous institution, and the Hollywood elite. This is inside Meghan and Harry's nightmare first 5 years of marriage. Click on this video so I can tell you all about it.